Hello everyone. I'm reading from Autobiography of a Yogi. I'm starting near the bottom at on page 426. They're watching the Stigmata, Teresa the Stigmata, and Yogananda's personal secretary has fainted and fallen down, and Yogananda is speaking to him. He says, well, I said consolingly, you are brave to return and look at the sight again. Remembering the patiently waiting line of pilgrims, Mr. Wright and I silently bade farewell to Teresa and left her sacred presence. There's a cross there. It says, an INS news dispatch from Germany dated March 26, 1948 reported, a German peasant woman lay on her cot this Good Friday, her head, hands, and shoulders blood-marked where Christ's body had bled from the nails of the cross and the crown of thorns. Thousands of awe-filled Germans and Americans filed silently past the cottage bed of Teresa Neumann. The great stigmatist died in Konnersreuth on September 18, 1962. Publisher's note. Back again. The following day, our little group motored south, thankful that we were not dependent on trains but could stop the Ford wherever we chose throughout the countryside. We enjoyed every minute of a tour through Germany, Holland, France, and the Swiss Alps. In Italy, we made a special trip to Assisi to honor the Apostle of Humility, St. Francis. The European tour ended in Greece, where we viewed the Athenian temples and saw the prison in which the gentle Socrates had drunk his death potion. One is filled with admiration for the artistry with which the ancient Greeks everywhere wrought their very fancies in alabaster. And there is a asterisk there. A passage in Eusebius relates to an interesting encounter between Socrates and a Hindu sage. The passage runs, Aristonexius, the musician, tells the following story about the Indians. One of these men met Socrates in Athens and asked him what was the scope of his philosophy. An inquiry into human phenomena, replied Socrates. At this, the Indian burst out laughing. How can a man inquire into human phenomena, he said, when he is ignorant of the divine ones? The Greek ideal, echoed in Western philosophies, is man, know thyself. A Hindu would say, man, know thyself, with self capitalized. The dictum of Descartes, I think, therefore I am, is not philosophically valid. The reasoning facilities cannot shed light on man's ultimate being being capitalized. The human mind, like the phenomenal world that it cognizes, is in perpetual flux and can yield no finalities. Intellectual satisfaction is not the highest goal. The seeker of God is the real lover of Vidya, unchangeable truth. All else is avidya, relative knowledge. Back in the text again. We took ship over the sunny Mediterranean, disembarking at Palestine. Wandering day after day over the Holy Land, I was more than ever convinced that the value of pilgrimage. To the sensitive heart, the Spirit of Christ is all pervasive in Palestine. I walked reverently by his side at Bethlehem, Gethsemane, Calvary, and the holy Mount of Olives, and by the river Jordan and the Sea of Galilee. Our little party visited the birth manger, Joseph's carpenter shop, the tomb of Lazarus, and the house of Martha and Mary, the hall of the Last Supper. Antiquity unfolded, scene by scene. I saw the divine drama that Christ once played for the ages. On to Egypt, with its modern Cairo and ancient pyramids, then a boat down the long Red Sea over the vast Arabian Sea, Lo, India. Chapter 40. I Return to India. Grateful I was, inhaling the blessed air of India. Our boat, Rajputana, docked on August 22, 1935, in the huge harbor of Bombay. Even this, my first day off the ship, was a foretaste of the ceaselessly busy year ahead. Friends had gathered at the dock to welcome us with flower garlands. Soon at our suite in the Taj Mahal Hotel, we received several groups of reporters and photographers. Bombay was a city new to me. I found it energetically modern, with many innovations from the West. Palms line the spacious boulevards. Magnificent state structures vie for interest with ancient temples. Very little time was given to sightseeing, however. I was impatient, eager to see my beloved Guru and other dear ones. Consigning the Ford to a baggage car, our party was soon speeding eastward by train towards Calcutta. Our arrival at Howrah station found such an immense crowd assembled to greet us that for a while we were unable to disembark from the train. The young Maharaja of Kashimbazara and my brother Bishnu headed the reception committee. I was unprepared for the warmth and magnitude of our welcome. Preceded by a line of automobiles and motorcycles, and amidst the joyous sounds of drums and conchs, Miss Bilich and Mr. Wright and I, flower garland from head to foot, drove slowly to my father's home. My aged parent embraced me as one returning from the dead. Long we gazed on each other, speechless with joy. Brothers and sisters, uncles, aunts, and cousins. And there's an asterisk there that I missed. We broke our journey in central provinces halfway across the continent to see Mahatma Gandhi at Wardha. These days were described in chapter 44. Alright, here is a picture of Sri Yukteswar and Yoganandaji, Calcutta, 1935. Back to the text. Students and friends of years long past were grouped around me, not a dry eye among us. Passed now into the archives of memory, the scene of loving reunion vividly endures, unforgettable in my heart. As for my meeting with Sri Yukteswar, words failed me. Let the following description from my secretary suffice. Today, filled with the highest anticipations, I drove Yoganandaji from Calcutta to Serampore. Mr. Wright recorded in his travel diary. We passed by quaint shops, one of them the favorite eating place of Yoganandaji during his college days, and finally entered a narrow walled lane. A sudden left turn, and there before us stood the two-story brick ashram of the master, its grilled balcony jutting from the upper floor. A pervasive impression was that of peaceful solitude. In grave humility I walked behind Yoganandaji into the courtyard within the hermitage walls. Hearts beating fast, we proceeded up some old cement steps, trod no doubt by countless truth-seekers. Our attention grew keener and keener as we strode. Before us, near the head of the stairs, quietly appeared the Great One, Swami Sri Yukteswarji, standing in the noble pose of a sage. My heart heaved and swelled at the blessing of being in his sublime presence. Tears blurred my eager sight when Yoganandaji dropped to his knees and with bowed head offered his soul's gratitude and greeting, touching with his hand the Guru's feet, and then in humble obedience his own forehead. He rose then and was embraced on both sides on the bosom of Sri Yukteswarji. No words passed in the beginning, but intense feeling was expressed by the mute phrases of the soul. How their eyes sparkled with the warmth of reunion. A tender vibration surged through the quiet patio, and the sun suddenly eluded the clouds to add a blaze of glory. On bended knee before the Master, I gave my own unexpressed love and thanks, touching his feet, calloused by time and service, and receiving his blessing. I stood then and gazed into his beautiful eyes, deep with introspection, yet radiant with joy. We entered his sitting room, whose whole side opens to the balcony first seen from the street. The Master sat on a covered mattress placed on the cement floor, bracing himself against a worn Davenport. Yogananda-ji and I sat near the Guru's feet, with orange-colored pillows to lean against and ease our positions on the straw mat. I tried without much success to understand the gist of the talk in Bengali between the two Swamijis, for they do not use English, I discovered, when they are together among Swami Maharaja, as the great Guru is called by others, can and often does speak it. They're referring to English there. But I easily perceived the saintliness of the Great One through his heartwarming smile and twinkling eyes. Quickly discernible in his merry or serious conversation is a positiveness in statement, the mark of a sage. One who knows he knows, but because he one who knows he knows, because he knows God. The Master's great wisdom, strength of purpose, and determination were apparent in every way. He was simply clad. His dhoti and shirt, once dyed in ochre color, are now a faded orange. Studying him reverently from time to time, I noted that he is of large athletic stature, his body hardened by the trials and sacrifices of a renunciant's life. His poise is majestic. He moves with dignified tread and erect posture. A jovial and rollicking laugh comes from the depths of his chest, causing his whole body to shake and quiver. His austere face strikingly conveys an impression of divine power. His hair, parted in the middle, is white around the forehead, streaked elsewhere with silvery gold and silvery black, and ends in ringlets at his shoulders. A beard and mustache are scant or thinned out, and seem to enhance his features. His forehead slopes as though seeking the heavens. His dark eyes are haloed by the ethereal blue ring. He has a rather large and homely nose, with which he amuses himself in idle moments, flipping and wiggling it with his fingers, like a child. In repose his mouth is stern, yet subtly touched with tenderness. Glancing here and there, I observed that the somewhat dilapidated room suggests the owner's non-attachment to material comforts. The weather-stained white walls of the long chamber are streaked with fading blue plaster. At one end of the room hangs the unique picture of Lahari Masaya, devotionally adorned with a simple garland. There is also a photograph showing Yogananda-ji at the time of his arrival in Boston, standing with other delegates at the Congress of Religions. And here is a photograph of Sri Yukteswar's Hermitage, second floor dining balcony of Sri Yukteswar's Hermitage, Srinagar, 1935. Paramahansa Yogananda Center is seated near his guru, standing right. I noted a quaint concurrence of old and new. A huge cut-glass candlelight chandelier is covered with cobwebs through long disuse, and on the wall hangs a bright, up-to-date calendar. The room emanates a fragrance of peace and happiness. Beyond the balcony, coconut palms tower over the hermitage as through as though a silent protection. The master needs merely to clap his hands. Before finishing, he is attended by some small disciple. One of them, a thin lad named Parafula, there's an asterisk there, has long black hair, sparkling black eyes, and a heavenly smile. His eyes twinkle as the corners of his mouth rise, like stars in a crescent moon suddenly appearing at twilight. Okay, the asterisk says, Prafula was the lad who was present with Master when a cobra approached. See page 131. Back at the text, Swami Sri Yutaswarji's joy is obviously intense at the return of his product. Parentheses, he seems to be somewhat inquisitive about me, the product's product. However, the predominance of wisdom in the Great One's nature hinders his outward expression of feeling. Yoganandaji presented him with some gifts, as is the custom when the disciple returns to his guru. We sat down later to a simple but well-cooked meal of vegetables and rice. Sri Yutaswarji was pleased at my observance of a number of Indian customs, finger eating, for example. After several hours of flying Bengali phrases and the exchange of warm smiles and joyful glances, we paid obeisance at his feet, bid adieu with a paranam, there's a cross there, and departed for Calcutta with an everlasting memory of a sacred meeting. Although I write chiefly of my external impressions of the Master, yet I was always conscious of his spiritual glory. I felt his power and shall ever retain that feeling as my divine blessing. Okay, the cross, at the cross it says literally complete salutation, from Sanskrit root nam, to salute or bow down, and the prefix pra, which is completely. A pranam salutation is made chiefly before the monks and other respected persons. Okay, back at the text. From America, Europe, and Palestine I had brought many presents for Sri Yutaswar. He received them smilingly, but without remark. For my own case, I had bought in Germany a combination umbrella cane. In India, I decided to give it to Master. This gift I appreciate indeed. My Guru's eyes were turned upon me with affection and understanding as he made the unwonted comment. From all the presents, it was the cane that he singled out to display to visitors. Master, please permit me to get a new carpet for the sitting room. I had noticed that Sri Yutaswar's tiger skin was placed over a worn rug. Do so if it pleases you. My Guru's voice was not enthusiastic. Behold, my tiger mat is nice and clean. I am monarch in my own little kingdom. Beyond it is the vast world, interested only in externals. As he uttered these words, I felt the years roll back. Once again I am a young disciple, purified daily in fires of chastisement. As soon as I could tear myself away from Sriramapur and Calcutta, I set out with Mr. Wright for Ranchi. What a welcome there! A touching ovation. Tears stood in my eyes as I embraced the selfless teachers who had kept the banner of the school flying during my 15 years' absence. The bright faces and happy smiles of the residential and day students were ample testimony to the worth of their careful schooling and yoga training. Yet, alas, the Ranchi institution was in dire financial difficulties. Sir Manindra Chandra Nunde, the old Maharaja whose Kasim Bazar Palace had been converted into the central school building and who had made many princely donations, was now dead. Many free, benevolent features of the school were seriously endangered for the lack of sufficient public support. I had not spent years in America without learning some of its practical wisdom, its undaunted spirit before obstacles. For 1 week I remained in Ranchi, wrestling with critical problems. Then came interviews in Calcutta with prominent leaders and educators, a long talk with the young Maharaja of Qasim Bazar, a financial appeal to my father, and lo, the shaky foundations of Ranchi School began to be righted. Many donations arrived in the nick of time from my American students. Within a few months after my arrival in India, I had the joy of seeing the Ranchi School legally incorporated. My lifelong dream of a permanently endowed yoga educational center was fulfilled. That aspiration had guided me in the humble beginnings in 1917 with a group of 7 boys. The school, Yoga Sat Sangha Brahmachara Vidyalaya, conducts outdoor classes in grammar and high school subjects. The resident students and day scholars also receive vocational training of some kind. The boys themselves regulate many of their activities through autonomous committees. Very early in my career as an educator, I discovered that boys who may impishly delight in outwitting a teacher will cheerfully accept disciplinary rules that are set by their fellow students. Never a model pupil myself, I had a ready sympathy for all boyish pranks and problems. Sports and games are encouraged. The fields resound with hockey and football games. There's an asterisk there. And football practice. Ranchi students often win the cup at competitive events. The boys are taught the Yoga principle of muscle recharging through willpower, mental direction of life energy to any part of the body. They also learn asanas, parentheses postures, and sword and lathi, parentheses stick play. Trained in first aid, the Ranchi students have given the praiseworthy service to their province in tragic times of flood or famine. The boys work in the garden and grow their own vegetables. Instruction in Hindi in primary school subjects is provided for Kols, Santals, and Mundas, the original tribes of the province. Classes for girls only are conducted in nearby villages. The asterisk there says English-style football is called soccer in America. The unique feature at Ranchi is the initiation into Kriya Yoga. The boys daily practice their spiritual exercises, engage in Gita chanting, and are taught by precept and example the virtues of simplicity, self-sacrifice, honor, and truth. Evil is pointed out to them as being that which produces misery, good as those actions which result in true happiness. Evil may be compared to poisoned honey, tempting but laden with death. Overcoming restlessness of body and mind by concentration techniques has achieved astonishing results. It is no novelty at Ranchi to see an appealing little figure aged 9 or 10 years sitting for an hour or more in unbroken poise, the unwinking gaze directed at the spiritual eye. In the orchard stands a Shiva temple with a statue of the Blessed Master Lahari Masaya. Daily prayers and scripture classes are held in the garden under the mango bowers. Yogoda Satsanga Sivashram, parentheses, home of service, hospital on the Ranchi estate offers free surgical and medical aid to many thousands of India's poor. Ranchi lies 2,000 feet above sea level. The climate is mild and equable. The 25-acre site by a large bathing pond, includes one of the finest private orchards in India, 500 fruit trees, mango, date, guava, lychee, and jackfruit. The Ranchi Library contains numerous magazines and 1,000 volumes in English and Bengali, donations from the West and the East. There is a collection of the scriptures of the world. A well-classified museum displays precious stones and archaeological, geological, and anthropological exhibits, trophies to a great extent of my wanderings over the Lord's varied earth. There's an asterisk there. A museum in the West with similar exhibits collected by Paramahansa Yogananda is located at Self-Realization Fellowship Lake Shrine in Pacific Palisades, California. Back with the text. Branch high schools with the residential and yoga features of Ranchi have been opened and are now flourishing. These are Yogoda Satsanga Vidyapith (school for boys in Lakhanpur in West Bengal, and the high school and Hermitage in Imalacha in Midnapur, Bengal. There's a asterisk there. From this original nucleus, many YSS educational institutions for both boys and girls are now thriving in several locales in India. Their curricula range from primary to college level. A stately Yogada Math ashram in Dakshineswar, fronting the Ganges, was dedicated in 1939. Only a few miles north of Calcutta, the Hermitage affords a haven of peace for city dwellers. The Dakshineswar Math is the headquarters in India of Yogoda Satsanga Society and its schools, centers, and hermitage in various parts of India. Yogoda Satsanga Society of India is legally affiliated with the international headquarters, Self-Realization Fellowship in Los Angeles, California, USA. Yogoda Satsanga, there's a cross there, activities include the publication of quarterly Yogoda magazine and fortnightly mailings of lessons to students in all parts of India. These lessons give detailed instructions in self-realization, fellowship, energization, concentration, and meditation techniques. Our faithful practice constitutes the essential groundwork for the higher instructions of Kriya Yoga, which is given in subsequent lessons to qualified students. Yogoda educational, religious, and humanitarian activities require the service and devotion of many teachers and workers. I do not list their names here because they are so numerous, but in my heart each one has a lustrous niche. Mr. Wright formed many relationships with Ranchi boys. Clad in a simple dhoti, he lived for a while among them. In Bombay, Ranchi, Calcutta, Serampore, everywhere he went, my secretary, who has a gift of vivid description, would write in a travel diary his adventures. One evening I asked him a question. "Dick, what is your impression of India?" "Peace," he said thoughtfully. "The racial aura is peace." Okay, I'm coming back to this cross that's on the previous page. It says, Yogoda is derived from yoga, union, harmony, equilibrium, and da, that which imparts. Sat Sangha is composed of Sat, truth, and Sangha, fellowship. Yogoda is a word coined by Paramahansa Yogananda in 1916 when he discovered the principles of recharging the human body with energy from the cosmic source. See page 289. Siriyutswar called his hermitage organization Satsanga, fellowship with truth. His disciple Paramahansaji naturally wished to retain that name. Yogoda Satsanga Society of India is a non-profit institution designed to exist perpetually. Under that name, Yoganandaji incorporated his work in foundations in India which are now being administered by the board of directors at Yogoda Math in Dakshineswar, West Bengal. Many YSS meditation centers are now flourishing in various parts of India. In the West, Yoganandaji rendered the name of his society in English, incorporating his work there as Self-Realization Fellowship. Sri Dayamata has been president since 1955 of both Yogoda Satsanga Society of India and Self-Realization Fellowship. Publisher's note. Okay, this is a photograph of Yogoda Math on the Ganges River at the Dakshineswar, India. It says Yogoda Satsang Society of India headquarters near Calcutta, founded by Paramahansa Yogananda in 1939. Alright, well, we've run out of time. That's it for today. Thank you. Bye.